So when we talk about adjusting strategy, Chase, I'm just interested in, tell us a little bit about just those very early conversations with leadership when reality sets in that our campuses are closing and we're not going to have that same reach with our prospective students, especially in the midst of yield season. This came down pretty heavy last March. April, things really began to close off. And so you're right in the midst of connecting with these accepted students and then making final decisions. And just give us some insight into what those early conversations were like with your institution's leadership.
Sure, absolutely. So a little bit of background for everybody. I actually made a transition to Palm Beach Atlantic in June of 2020, so in the heart of the pandemic. And before that, I was at another institution as assistant vice president for undergraduate enrollment. And so I was at the previous institution in March when that decision came down that, hey, this is very serious and we're going to have to go immediately into a quarantine/remote operation. And I remember going in and saying, okay, great. As the leader of that team in the undergraduate side of the house, I immediately had to come up with a plan for how we'll work remote, because that wasn't something that was typical except when you're recruiting as an admissions counselor or recruiter. So took the operations team, took the entire recruitment team remote in a day. And luckily for us, we had a strong support system from the IT side of the house. And we also had that just across the university, and we were able to do that. But in that conversation, I think everybody at that institution realized immediately, this is going to be a very, very different 2 weeks at the time. We were expecting just 2 weeks, and maybe the worst case scenario was 4 weeks. And we said, this is going to be the hardest 2 weeks, 4 weeks of our life, and from a professional side. And so we just kind of buckled down, and everyone said, you know what? This is going to put a dent in kind of what we're expecting, because this is not only impacting our operation, but it's also impacting student decisions. I mean, there are families out there who we all now know what a serious impact that was. So those conversations were going back and forth. So at the cabinet level, and then with my team, what is the expectation for the next 2 to 4 weeks? And as we kind of went along was when those conversations kicked up into, this is long-term. What are the expectations now for our fall class? What are the expectations for the future?